Democracy. Hitler. Democracy. Hitler, right? It's almost a knee-jerk reaction. You almost can't help it. It's almost like the doctor hitting your knee. As soon as I say democracy, you think Hitler. Hitler wasn't elected, folks. And if you think he was elected, you might want to look into the matter. And you might want to ask yourself, wow, why is it that I believe Hitler was democratically elected? Who taught me that lie? Why did they teach me that lie? You might want to seriously ask yourself that. Hitler was not elected. And I have links in the sidebar, and I'd certainly encourage you to read about it. But we don't have to go back to World War II in Germany to find a war criminal that has been elected, right? Any of our past presidents since World War II, if held to the standards at Nuremberg, would be convicted as war criminals, including the lovely Barack Obama. But is that an argument against democracy? Let's take a look. In the last U.S. presidential election, in which we, of course, voted in yet another war criminal, a little over 69 million people voted for Barack Obama. It's about 32% of the adult population. About 60 million people, or 27% of the adult population, voted for McCain. That means 90 million adults, making up about 40.65% of the population, didn't vote for either of them. 90 million people, more than voted for Barack, more than voted for McCain. 90 million people. But wait, that doesn't even tell the true story, right? Because we don't vote for the president in this country, folks. That's right, we have that wonderful electoral college. You vote for electors. You vote for people to vote for you. 538 people who choose the president. Let me repeat that. 538 people choose your president. No. Well, that's actually not true. It only takes 270 of them to choose your president. 270 people to pick a war criminal. Now, is that the tyranny of the majority? Certainly not. And if you look at the election results for Adolf Hitler, you'll find similar results. A minority. And who is it that feeds us all this bullshit that I talked about in the last video? Is it a tyranny of the majority? Filling us with lies? Convincing us that we vote for a president? No, it's a tyranny of a minority. Was it a tyranny of a majority that wrote this Constitution and voted for it and passed it as the most wonderful and democratic form of government that they could think of? Or was it a small, wealthy elite who were worried, as James Madison put it, about protecting the minority of the opulent? Or as John Jay put it, forming a government in which the people who own it could rule it? You see, for all your worrying about this tyranny of majority, what you'll find in reality, again and again, is the tyranny of a minority. A small minority of people who rule over us, who make decisions that affect all of our lives. A tyranny of a minority. Wasn't it a tyranny of a majority that voted in Barack Obama? Wasn't it a tyranny of a majority that voted in George Bush? It was a tyranny of a minority. And if 70 million people engaged in that process to vote for Barack Obama, or another 60 million engaged in that process to vote for McCain, that doesn't say anything about democracy. If people working 60, 70 hours a week, taking care of friends and family and loved ones, doing all the things that they have to do to survive in this society, if the best they can come up with is, well, I'll cast a vote, so it's all I can do, that's not a critique of democracy. It's a critique of this very undemocratic system, the system that was set out from the very start to be undemocratic. After all, it wasn't the majority of people who decided that we would enslave blacks or disenfranchise people who didn't own property or women. Again, it was a tyranny of a minority. It wasn't a tyranny of a majority that decided that we should engage in bloody revolution against Great Britain or engage in endless wars of conquest. Again, it was a tyranny of a minority. It wasn't a tyranny of a majority of people who decided that we should push Japan into attacking us at Pearl Harbor. It was a tyranny of a minority who wanted to manufacture consent, in the words of Walter Lippmann. For all your worrying about the tyranny of the majority, I'd like you to look into your life and look at the reality. It's not a tyranny of a majority that's negatively affecting you, making decisions that impact your life. Again and again, whether it be the media, multinational corporations, the government, again and again, it's a small tyranny of the minority, a small ruling elite who own and control the vast wealth of this nation. The land, the labor, the resources, the technologies. It's a small minority. And to help give you some measure of the welfare, the bureaucracy, the protection we have given this small minority of elites is political analyst Michael Parenti.
As the economy grew from a colonial, self-sustained, local, self-employed economy to a complex, mass-market, corporate capitalist economy, you had what? You had the need for new modes of transportation and whole new technologies developed by government. You had export supports and market protections that came from the government. You had price supports and investment subsidies that came from the government. Now the cobbler, the smith, the housewife, the seamstress, they didn't demand these services and growth, and they weren't for their benefit. They were there for the people who owned and controlled the land, the labor, and the resources. What is this federal bureaucracy that the conservatives and the business community rail against? Well, you look at it. The Department of Commerce, the Department of Transportation, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Treasury, the Department of Agriculture, which is mostly for agribusiness, the Federal Trade Commission, the Department of Energy, the Interstate Commerce Commission, the Federal Reserve System, which is banker-dominated, who sell at the cost of $300 billion a year to the U.S. taxpayer, who sell us our dollars, our currency. The United States doesn't have a currency. Just look into your wallet next time. You will not see it's not a U.S. currency. It's a Federal Reserve currency. Now, in almost all these instances, the government units came into existence, as I said, at the behest of the business community because it had different kinds of service needs and regulatory needs. And the biggest bureaucracy of all, the biggest bureaucracy, which you can take almost all the other ones and stick in that one. It's called the Department of Defense.
Or as it was more accurately referred to, the War Department. And none of these things, people, were the result of democracy. None of them are an argument against democracy. If anything, Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, George Bush, Barack Obama, these are arguments for democracy, for you and I to have a say in things that affect us. Democracy is revolutionary. Stay tuned for more on democracy.